Okay, so it is time for my update for the week. Today we are going to be updating a number of different things, but before I go any further, you'll notice that I'm not alone and I'm not where I usually am. I'm back with my mum. Hi, mum.
Hi, beautiful.
It's great to be here with my mum because today, among other things, we're going to be reviewing two books. You can see them in the background that we both actually read together, which was an interesting experience. Before I get to that, I just want to quickly let you guys know that I'm still currently reading Mistborn: The Final Empire. I'm very close to the end. I'm reading it on graphic audio. I've got about 4 hours left to go, and it's been a good experience, so I'm really enjoying that. I should finish this by the end of the day, and then I will move on to the Princess Diaries, which is my first official January read for this year. So, there's your update with that. Today...
Can I just ask, is the Princess Diaries similar to the movies?
I haven't read it yet, the book.
Okay.
So, but once I read it, I'll let you know. We'll come back. We'll do an update. Alright, so today we are doing a dual review of two books. So it'll be like a mini sort of review. But as per usual, we're going to start off with a spoiler-free section and then we'll move into the spoilers. So, which one do you think we should review first?
No.
Alright. So the first book we're going to review is The Christmas Box by Richard Paul Evans. When I did my monthly wrap, I was telling you guys that I was going to do a review with my mum on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with spoiler-free section. And we're going to talk about a couple of spoiler-free pros and cons. So let's get into that. So, Mum, you have a spoiler-free pro and a spoiler-free con. So what is your spoiler-free con?
That the book is not long enough.
I would agree with that. It's definitely not long enough. It's 125 pages long, which definitely makes it a novella. Definitely not long enough. I would have to agree on that one. And your spoiler-free pro?
I prefer the book to the movie.
Yeah, so there are some creative differences that are... so the book was the original source material. This was written first and then it was adapted into the film that I've spoken to you guys about, and they definitely took creative liberties with the film with certain things that they did, and I have to agree the book is much better. So certain changes they made to the film, not necessarily great, but that makes for a pro for the book. My spoiler-free pros and cons. My spoiler-free con is not a con for me, personally, but I want to put it out there for you guys in case you're considering reading this book. And that is that, just to consider, this book does have religious references. Now, I want to be very clear. The religious references are extremely minimal. There's next to none, but they are in there. So I would say in total, maybe one page in total has religious context. But the purpose of the story is not religion. My spoiler-free pro is that this is a book about a man who learns a lesson. And I love those types of books. And if you are someone who loves to see someone who is stuck in their way and then through some situational circumstance changes who they are and how they view life for the better, then I recommend this. And so that's a very big pro for me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to quickly go into some spoiler read discussions about this book. So if you have not read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, then skip ahead. I'll have timestamps down in the description for the next review. But for those of you who have, we're going to discuss this right now. The basic premise of this book, now that we're in the spoiler section, so you have been warned, is that we are following a man, his wife, and their very young child, who they start off living in an apartment that is way too small for their little girl. The mum finds an advertisement advertising for a live-in family to live with an elderly widow to take care of her, to provide her meals and to clean and things like that. So the mother thinks it's a good idea because the child will have more room to run around in. The father, in case for whatever reason we end up keeping that in, what happened was behind the scenes a cap from a bottle just shot up in the air, so that's what made us react. And so the father doesn't really want to go for it, but they end up going for an interview with this elderly widow, and she doesn't live in a house. She lives in a mansion. It's massive. And they love the look of the house. What's really interesting, because we're in the spoiler section, let's discuss, first of all, how Richard is sitting down with Mary. It's very different in the film to how it is in the book. In the film, he's very snipey and snarky with her. But in the book, he's very respectful of her. So what did you think of that difference?
Yeah, I have quite an issue, not just with this going to film, anything going to film. Why do we need to sidetrack?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This is the book.
Yeah.
This is how he wanted it.
Yeah.
On the screen. It would have been much nicer if Richard was nice to
Mary, yeah.
Yeah, Mary,
Yeah,
because, you know,
yeah,
rather than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Stick to the original source material. It's something that I've had a gripe with many times, especially with Harry Potter. I've spoken to you guys about it before.
You'd pay laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God. Don't get me started. Julie Robertson, when you really need Renee Zellweger to play it. It just, yeah.
All right, I'll read the book and we'll come back and discuss it.
Yeah. We'll do a
review.
Yeah, because the
She has a lot to say.
first couple of pages,
Yeah.
I just ignored in the movie,
Oh,
and it sets the spot for the book and for what's happening.
so that's just
So
ridiculous.
yeah, to me, if you're going to make a movie, stick to the book.
Yes. Yep. You heard it here first. Stick to the book. Okay, so let's talk about the difference with the ending. So I read this book, and then after I finished reading it, I straight away watched the film, so I can make very easily I can make comparisons between the two. In the film, Richard ends up scoping out the grave himself of Andrea, Mary's lost child, Mary's dearly departed child. In the book, Richard ends up talking to the guy who welcomes them into the home, because we find out in the book that he is actually a dear friend of Mary's. And so they talk to him a lot. Like when Mary goes to hospital, the Carrie, the wife, calls him and says, look, you got to help us and things like this. So one day Richard and the guy go on, I don't remember his name, but they go for a trip because he says, I want to take you somewhere, to Richard, and he takes Richard to the graveyard and shows him the grave of Andrea.
Yeah.
So I think that this book is, maybe they were trying to create some kind of drama or humor in the film, because the book reads much more nicely and much more naturally, I'll have to say as well, compared to the film. And we'll quickly add in, for the sake of another change that is extremely noticeable. In the film, Richard works at a ski shop selling ski equipment, and in the book, he works at a suit rental shop where you rent suits. So it's completely different, because one of the snarky things that Richard says to
Mary.
Thankyou, I was going to say Miranda, to Mary, revolves around him working at a ski shop, and she says the thought of flying down a mountainside on two narrow pieces of wood would never appeal to me. It's so completely different because he doesn't work in a ski shop in this book. So, alright. The big theme in this book is Mary asking Richard certain questions along the way, and the biggest question that she asks him is, do you know what the first gift of Christmas is? And
By the way, do you know?
yeah. If you haven't read the book, do you know? Ultimately, in both book and film version, Richard ends up taking a lot of time to think about what the first gift of Christmas is, with Mary, I don't want to say hounding him, but she'll every so often say, have you given more thought to it? His wife Carrie will say, maybe there's a reason why she's asking you questions, so think about it. In the book, I think he says a child, and she says think about it more, and he then says it's love. And to me, that is the big takeaway theme from the Christmas box, is that the first gift of Christmas was love. To love each other, to have time for your family, because Richard is working so much at the store when his little daughter asks him little things like, can you read me a little picture book so I can go to sleep? Or can you come to my dance recital? Or the mum, the wife, wants him to have dinner with them. He's just too busy with the store, and he's not focusing on what's the most important thing, which is love and family. And this was just done so incredibly beautifully, and I highly recommend this book to anyone who wants to see a guy learn arguably the most important lesson that we can learn while we are here. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be massive amount of time, but be there for each other.
Yeah.
You know, like we're lucky, we're in a position now where you can come over more and we can have more time together.
Now, more than back then, this book is so important to read because of the lesson that, yes, our main character learns, but we as the reader learn the lessons along the way with him. And so I completely agree with you. It's a really good point. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to the second book. We'll be back in just a moment. The next book that we're doing a mini review on is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charles Mackesy. A bit of a glare, I apologise about that. So, into the spoiler-free section, let's go. Mum, you have a spoiler-free pro and con, so would you like to share that with everyone?
As a pro, I think it really makes you think. As a con, I wish this book was available before. That I didn't know about those lessons before.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I had us going for a couple of days, backwards and forwards.
Oh yeah, it did. My spoiler-free con is that the book isn't long enough. I feel like, yes, there is enough in here for sure, but I would love more. I would love Charles Mackesy to write a 500-page book. It would be amazing to read. My pro for this book is that it made me feel things that I haven't felt with any other book. When you're reading fictional works, generally speaking, you're along for the ride, and you're either going to enjoy it or you're not, but you're along for the ride. Where, because this book, as going in line with what my mum was saying, makes you think, it also evokes a ton of emotion in you while you're thinking that, not only by what you're learning with the book, but your reaction to what you have now learned. So as Mum was saying, it's like, how did I not think of this before? Or at the same time, when you're reading a line, you're going, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. And so when I finished reading this book, I was actually here at my mum's house, and I purchased this book on an impulse buy. I finished reading it here at my mum's, and it was incredibly early in the morning. When I finished reading it, I went to my mum's room and I woke her up, and I was pretty much close to being in tears, saying, I just finished reading The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, and you go read it. And oh my goodness. Whew. Alright guys, we're both chomping at the bit to get into the spoiler section. So, okay, we're going to head into that section in just a moment. If you have not read this book, I very rarely do this on my channel, but if you've not read this book, you need to read this book. Everyone needs to read The Boy, the Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, and they need to eat cake, and we'll tell you why in just a moment.
So if you can, buy yourself a small piece of cake.
Yes.
Not a biscuit, not a muffin.
Yep.
A small piece of cake.
Yep.
Before you read the book.
Completely
It will really help. And I couldn't believe Francy actually found this card, so he wants me to look at it as a reminder of the book this year.
Exactly. It's written for middle grade, but it needs to be read by people of all ages.
Oh, yeah.
And there are books that I've said I highly recommend and that I love, but this is, if you haven't read this book, you need to read this book. Like, if you have Audible, download the book from Audible.
Yeah.
If you can only read on an e-reader, download the e-reader version. If you can purchase a copy of the book, it is a beautiful book, then I highly recommend you do that too. Everyone needs to read this book. It will change your life. Alright, we're going to take a very quick break. Not for you, we are. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the spoiler version, which we have so much to say. So we'll be back with that in just a moment. Welcome to the spoiler version of The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse by Charles Mackesy. Mum and I have been waiting a very long time to not only review this book, but to review the spoiler version of this book. So let's do this. Take it away, Mum.
Okay. You know how we all have heard the saying, the glass is half full or half empty? Now, I'm generally the majority of time, I'm definitely glass is half full. I don't believe it's going empty. I believe in the positiveness. But I've had some times in my life where I was wondering how much fluid there was actually in the glass. And in this book, they have a really beautiful page where it says, just be grateful you still have the glass. So it makes you then think, oh wow, I still have the glass. It might have had a drop in it or even nothing in it, but still had something to hold on to in those times where you thought there isn't a lot to hold on to. Yeah.
Oh, here it is. I had my finger on the page.
Read it to them.
So there's the picture. Absolutely gorgeous, as you can see. And what it says is your glass half empty or half full? Asked the mole. I think I'm grateful to have a glass, said the boy. Now, you can't help, or I can't help, but think, oh, like the moment you read that was my first thought was, oh, and then my second thought was, yeah.
You never think of
No.
just something else.
My mum and I are very much glass half full type people. We always have been, always look for the positive, always. And then to read this, I that's one of the first things I said to Mum when I woke her up after I finished the book. I said, Mum, the glass half full. I'm just grateful to have the glass. Really?
Yeah, he woke me up like that, and I'm going, what do you mean?
happy you went.
It's really good, yeah.
Yeah.
And beautiful drawings in this book.
Yeah, Charles Mackesy is a beautiful illustrator. So Charles makes a point in his introduction. So Mum and I both listened to it on Audible. We had the physical copy so we could look through it as well, but we were listening to it. And the good thing about that is Charles actually narrates it on Audible. So if you're one of those people who love when the author themselves narrates a book, Charles does.
Yeah.
So Charles is saying in the intro in the book, but also on Audible, that he always wanted to write a book, but he always figured he would struggle writing a book because writing's just not his thing. He's not good at writing, but he loves to draw. And so every single page of this book has illustration in it because it's Charles' own work. And so rather than with standard authors who will send off what they've written to the publishing company or to the editors, Charles will be sending his pictures to them. And then they were slowly adding the words to it. And I just think that's really beautiful. And the words are so deep and meaningful as well. Like, when I first purchased this book, I couldn't help but think, okay, we're going on a journey with a boy, a mole, a fox, and a horse. And you do, yes, but it's not your once upon a time story. It's more thought-provoking things that come up. So if anything important could come up for these characters and the reader to think about, that's what's written instead. It's all the important stuff. And, just incredible. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make a point. I'm going to open it to a random page. I have. I'm going to read this. Sometimes I worry you'll all realize I'm ordinary, said the boy. Love doesn't need you to be extraordinary, said the mole. And this is exactly what this book is. Every single page has something that's just going to hit you right here. In the book, there is a mole. And the mole talks about cake. And ever since we both read this book, but Mum in particular has read this book, what have you been saying?
I want cake.
I want cake. I'm going to read the cake part of the book. This piece is entitled Cake. So we have a mole looking at a piece of cake and he says, well, hello. Do you have a favourite saying? Asked the boy. Yes, said the mole. What is it? If at first you don't succeed, have some cake. I see. Does it work? Every time. Then we have the mole over here with cake, and this says just a tiny taste. So you can see what's happening there. And he says, the mole says to the boy the next day, I got you a delicious cake. And the boy says, did you? And the mole says, yes. And the boy says, where is it? And the mole says, I ate it. And the boy says, oh. Then the mole says, but I got you another. And the boy says, did you? Where is that one? And the mole says the same thing seems to have happened. Oh, Oh, it's so cute. I want to allude back to what Mum was saying earlier in the spoiler-free section about, get the book and get a slice of cake on side. And that's why. Because there is that part of the book where the mole talks so much about cake and how good cake is that you can't help but want to eat cake. So we didn't have cake on us when we read it. But that's why we're recommending it to you. Have cake, honey.
I was just thinking, all the people that sit in peak hour traffic in the morning or in the afternoon or whenever you come home.
Yeah.
If you have this on Audible or, and turn off your radio, turn off any other noise, turn off your mobile, and while you're driving, read this and stop it wherever you think that you need to think about it. If your trip home is about half an hour, an hour and a half, that hour and a half, I promise you, is enough to make you think, because half an hour is probably not long enough, but it will make you think and keep going.
Yes.
Like you might go home, cook dinner, put the kids to bed, whatever, and then all of a sudden when you're quiet again, you might go, oh my God, the glass. What was it about the glass? Highly recommend it.
For those of you who are conscious about duration of an audiobook, I understand. There are audiobooks out there that go for 30 hours. So I understand where you're coming from. This is less than an hour.
The book of this month?
The buddy read of the month. And this month, the Mr. Francy buddy read has been chosen by my mum.
Yay.
So Mum actually came to me and showed me a book that we should buddy read. So, if you want to join us for the buddy read, the book we're going to read is Love Clancy by Richard Glover. Richard Glover, who is the author, he does the Audible narration for those of you wanting to listen to it on Audible. So that's the one. If you want to join us, let me know in the comments below. And look, I just want to give a big thank you to those of you who have sent me messages just saying how much you loved the last video I did with my mum in her temporary house. So this is her her permanent house she's going to stay in now, and she has moved in. And but anyway, you guys were just so complimentary, and
Thank you.
Really, and Mum thanks you too, and I just really appreciate that, because it motivates me as well. If you guys love these videos, it motivates me, it motivates Mum. We're happy to do these videos together for you guys. So if you enjoyed this and you want to see more of Mum and me...
Happy New Year, everybody!
Yes, a very, very happy New Year. Letting you guys go, peace, blessings, and so much love. Mwah. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. We will see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Bye for now.